Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Wandering Road podcast. I'm your co-host, Dean, alongside my stalwart host, Chris, who created the show. Once again, he has graced me with the ability to start the show, which is awesome. However, he may have made a mistake because I am sick as fuck. I've been coughing up the worst crap you could possibly imagine, and I'm all nasally. So you get to enjoy both of us being nasally during this entire episode. How you doing today, my friend? Are you
Keep
good?
working, Simpson.
Psh, whoopsh.
Doesn't
Dude,
matter that you're sick.
oh my god, The Simpsons are great. I think of The Simpsons like quotes every single day of my life, and it's so sad that they're just kind of like fizzling out.
I know. If you heard slurping in the background, I'm sorry. I'm drinking a nice coffee because I need it for right now.
Did
But
you Irish it up a little bit? Is it Irish?
no, I didn't, because if I did, I wouldn't be able to do this episode today. As much as I wanted to, dude, it's been one hell of a fucking week, and dude, like,
when is it not a
do-
hell of a week?
I know.
When is it not?
You kind of do the same. We kind of do the same thing, like PMing type of shit. Some days you'll work 8 hours. Some days it'll be like 14. So you kind of give or take.
Yeah.
With that shit. But what are we talking about today, man? What's
Okay.
on the agenda for today?
It's called the Smurl Family Haunting. Interestingly enough, this actually happened in our neck of the woods in Pennsylvania. Which also I did not know. Close to Scranton.
West Pittston, which is funny because I drive through that area when I go visit my friends up at their homestead. So
oh yeah, okay, yeah. I had no idea that was closer to like the New York side of Pennsylvania. There's a lot of forest up there, like small town America feel. Not too different from where we were in Western Pennsylvania for many years. I think that's important to say because you actually have to understand the atmosphere and the type of area where this sort of thing happened for the Smurl family. We'll paint the picture as we go. I have a little tiny tidbit to share first. Something creepy that actually happened to yours truly, Dean. Recently, I had something metaphysically strange happen to me that I cannot explain. Okay. We get people on all the time who talk about like they're clairvoyant or they do readings or they see ghosts all the time. That's fine. Like, that's their experience. For me, this is something that doesn't happen to me every day. So when it happens, it freaks the fuck out of me. And it makes me spiral into all these like philosophical questions of existence and all this stuff. So, okay. Have you heard? Go ahead.
Can I guess what happened to you?
Yeah. If you get it right, I'm going to jump out my window.
You were meditating again, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that happening. You know what? It's similar. It's similar.
Okay.
It's in a similar vein. I was not meditating, however. So there is just to set the stage, there is a show on Netflix called The RA Murders. It's actually a really good show. It's 1 season long. It's Swedish, so there are subtitles, but you could set Netflix to do like, the dubbing over with English. So it's if you don't like subtitles, it's still doable with English. I think it's a good show. It's not great. It's not a great show, but it's a good murder show. My wife and I have been watching it recently. So we got to this one part in the show, and I forget what episode. I think it's like episode 3 or 4. There's a scene that they're shooting from the air, looking down on this police station, and there's a little courtyard, and then you can see like police, however they say police in Swedish, like policia or whatever. There's the sign, and the way that the structure of the building is laid out with the courtyard, the windows, the way it wraps around, the trees, the walkway, everything about it. When I saw that, I kind of like gulped because about 1 or 2 weeks, I think it was about a week and a half ago, I had this dream. I don't dream this shit every day. Like, this is going to sound so weird because, your dreams are weird, but I just want to emphasize that this dream is not the type of dream that I have often, but it's so random. Like, I wasn't playing any video games. I wasn't watching anything. I just happened to dream that I was on a SWAT team and I was wearing a SWAT uniform. Wearing my SWAT uniform, I got mistaken by another SWAT team of another country for someone who belonged on their team. So I got folded into their team. And before I can explain that, hey, I'm not on your SWAT team. Like, I'm in full gear. I have my face covering. I have like my rifle, like everything on. I get pulled into their team. and then we're stacking up, and we're gonna go into this area where there's some bad guys. And we go in and we start clearing this area, and there's a scene in my memory in this dream where I'm looking at this courtyard through this window, and I see this bad guy, blah blah blah. So that okay, so just that's the story. The thing that's scary as fuck is I have never seen the layout of a building like this before. I had never watched this show before. I had never even heard of this show before. There were no clips, like I never watched any clips or anything, no trailers. There was a scene in this show, The RA Murders, that captured this area within a police cul-de-sac, like within a police what do you call it? Courtyard, that basically matched exactly what my dream was. And it was just like one of those moments where it wasn't like kind of similar. I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting. Like it looks a little bit like my dream." No, it was exactly fucking like my dream. It looked exactly like my dream with the trees and the windows and the police station and the fact that I was on a SWAT team. I don't dream of being on a SWAT team. Like this is the first time I've dreamt of being on a SWAT team probably in my entire life. I've never worked in the police force, never been on a SWAT team. I don't know why I dreamt that. It was just such a moment of visceral, like, what the fuck? Like this is a reality show moment where someone's fucking with me on a cosmic level. I don't think I'm clairvoyant, but as I get older, and you reminded me of that meditation thing where I talked about a while ago in another episode of how I had this thing that was just really weird. And I wonder, like, as you get older, these things that happen, are they because you become more cosmically tuned to your existence, like what's going on? But it just feels like there has to be something to that, because the likelihood that I dreamt that a week before I actually watched it on a video, it just seems so unlikely. I'll stop ranting now because it's kind of bothering me. It's kind of freaking me out again now that I revisit it. Did I articulate that enough? Do you have any questions, or like, what do you think about that experience that I had?
So so basically what you're telling me is you kinda had a predictive dream or like kind of precognition? Not
I have no
necessarily
idea. Yeah,
not necessarily in the sense that you were, watching the show, but you kinda
right.
ended up in the show.
Exactly. If I had to psychoanalyze and be like a nerdy analyst about this whole situation, I would think that if there was something to it, it would be kind of a precognition thing. I happened to be flipping through like Facebook Reels recently, and I saw this really interesting video about how on the quantum subatomic level, the concept we talked about where like there can be two particles inextricably linked over vast distances, and somebody was talking about how it might be possible to have one photon or something be vibrating on the same frequency as another photon. It just made me wonder, like, did I subconsciously know at a subatomic level that I was going to be watching this show in a week from then, and then I dreamt about it?
It could be precognition. Another thing it could be is that you maybe saw a couple of reels about that show because our phones listen to us all the time, and you may have talked
Mm,
about that show with your wife, uh,
no,
with the
hold on.
intention of no? No?
No, I wanna emphasize that. I mean, that's an interesting perspective, I see where you're going, but I just wanna
Yeah.
clarify, we had never heard of the show. So we never watch shows anymore because, like, we're just so exhausted all the time with, like, family life and, like, work life. There's no direct explanation unless there's something subconsciously going on or something, like, metaphysical going on. Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense, and to be honest with you, I don't have an explanation for it.
It's weird as
I
fuck.
don't it's odd, it really is. But anywho,
Well,
today's
with
topic
that.
yeah, we got the Smurl family haunting for
Yes,
today's
indeed.
episode, and you'll notice when today's episode releases, it'll be September 5th, the same
Mhm.
day that the supposed final Conjuring movie is releasing about the Smurl family haunting. We know that films like to take liberties with stories, injecting things for dramatic effect. And what we want to do is for folks that actually want to learn more about the Smurl family haunting, we're just going to take the story, go through it, relay what the family experienced, how the Warrens helped or didn't help, what happened in the aftermath, and then we'll give our opinions as we always do. But Dean, I will toss it over to you to kick us off.
Man, I couldn't have said it better myself. So tonight, or today, wherever you're listening from, we journey into one of the most chilling modern hauntings in American history. This is a story of terror, one that plagued an ordinary family, as we said, in eastern Pennsylvania for over a decade. Some people kind of say, this is a case of hysteria, things just spiraling out of control. But to be fair, there were quite a lot of things that happened to them that even other people, such as neighbors, were witness to. So let's set the stage, the beginning. So the year was 1973. Jack and Janet Smurl moved into a duplex in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. It was a modest home, nothing unusual at first, a place to raise their four daughters, comfortable, quaint. But soon the walls began kind of whispering to them in a way. Like they were hearing these strange noises, whisperings, kind of like musings in a distance. And at first, they kind of just brushed it off. Things seemed to be going well, but they just had an unease about what's going on. Suddenly, you start getting strange things happening physically. So, like drawers would open by themselves. There was a water stain that is going to be quintessential to the story. I'm sure it's going to be in the movie because it's a big part of the story. Water stains appear. There was one that happened under this rug that they just bought. They had this weird smell going on in the house, like rotting flesh and decaying garbage. They just could not explain it. Even though that this was kind of increasing in the beginning, they kind of just dismissed it, right? They just brushed it off as like, it's just pipes. This is an older house, whatever. It's the 70s. Who knows? You tell me, Chris, what happens next? What's going on after that?
So, like you pointed out, they moved in 1973. The reason why they moved to West Pittston in 1973, for those of you, if you were alive at the time, in the summer of 1972, Hurricane Agnes swept through the region. Whole neighborhoods were flooded. Unfortunately, Jack and Janet were one of the families that was affected. So that is why they moved. Their house in Wilkes-Barre was completely ruined. So that is why they moved to the duplex in West Pittston. Soon as they moved in, you alluded to it already, they had freshly painted their walls and they started to stain overnight. This was a frequent occurrence. They had new appliances, they would break without cause. Their pipes would leak and deep scratches would appear on paint that had just been redone. On top of that, they would have cold spots, sudden foul odors that would drift through the rooms, as you alluded to, sulfur smells, rotting smells. And also, the family claimed that they heard heavy rhythmic bangs in the wall, often 3 times in a row, which could be interpreted as a mocking of the Holy Trinity. And the reason that that one in particular gives me goosebumps is because, like I said multiple times on the show and the episode where we went through my stories, that would happen to us. But what is the number one thing people always do in these types of situations? We just moved into a house. Weird shit starts happening. There's weird noises, yada, yada, yada. We get the age old answer of the house is settling. Well, what does that really mean? Because clearly there were people there before. You telling me the house didn't settle before? Like the house is like, oh, wait, I gotta settle again. We got new tenants in here. That's one of
Great,
the excuses that pisses me
dude,
off.
dude. That was such a spot on accent of a house. Amazing.
That's what I don't
Can you do
know.
that again? I want my house to talk like that.
Your house would be like aloha.
Get the fuck out of here, Howley. That's what it would say.
Yeah, that's exactly what it would say to you. Get out of here. You're inflating our prices, you bastard. So we fast forward to the late 70s. Over the years, the disturbances started to grow stranger. The radio would flip on and off by itself, which I experienced. Kitchen drawers would open and slam shut with such force that the wood would end up cracking. Their chandeliers would sway back and forth as if someone had shoved it. And especially late at night, this seemed to have been a frequent occurrence that the Smurls experienced. A loud pounding sound would rattle the duplex walls. So when that pounding on the wall happened, are we thinking it was just 1 pound on the wall? 2 pounds? No, you guessed it. 3 in a row. Bang, bang, bang. Echoing through the dark. And what does that symbolize? Of course, again, mocking of the Holy Trinity. Now, this part makes me sad because I have two dogs, two lovely dogs that can be a pain in the butt sometimes when they're hungry. But the family dog, the Smurls reported that their dog was thrown against the wall by invisible hands. And that makes me really sad. Like, why do these things always target the animals? Maybe because the dog can see it. Maybe the dog's like, barking at it. Animals are sensitive to these things. I'm not at all surprised that dogs, animals in general tend to be targeted. Kids in general tend to be targeted because they are innocent in nature. They can't really do anything to defend themselves. But whatever this thing is, the Smurl said it would pick up its dog and throw it against the wall, which this thing's a fucking piece of shit for doing that. On top of that, you would have objects vanishing only to reappear in impossible places. So let's think about that for a second. So picture you have a hair straightener in your bathroom. It's always in your bath. Use it, unplug it, leave it on the sink. You're using it one morning, you're done with it, you put it away, go out to work, come back, wake up the next morning. Okay, gotta, fix up my hair for work before I go in. You look down, straightener's gone. Where the fuck could it possibly be? You search all over and then you find it in the oddest place, like in the fucking dryer or in the attic on the middle of the floor. So I'm just using that as an example as potentially what they experienced. Because, I mean, personally for me, I dealt with the objects vanishing only to reappear randomly sometimes. For me, it would reappear like in the middle of the fucking floor, like either in the living room or in my room. So I'm assuming that would have been the same case for the Smurls. So just imagine you have like an object that is always in a specific place, and then it disappears. You go look for it, and it turns up in some random fucking place. Like it fucking shows up in the garage or in the dryer or something of that sort. And a reminder, they were living in a duplex, right? Which means there was a house attached right to it. Jack's parents lived in that home, and they also reported the same disturbances, which means this thing was spreading. And one thing that I want to pinpoint before I kick it over to Dean is that along with the objects vanishing, along with the radios turning on and off by itself, the lights flickering, chandelier swaying with no wind or draft, family dog being attacked sporadically, we also had shadowy figures appearing briefly in between the doorways. They say it was an elderly looking woman in gray, and this was seen by more than one family member. Picture it, Dean. They move in, we're pushing the late 70s. So let's ballpark 1973 to 1979 or to 1980. So you're talking about roughly 7 years total dealing with this crazy bullshit. And it just progressively gets worse.
I have to inject my comic presence here. Like when you were talking about the hair straightener, I just pictured like walking into a room and there's a ghost. She's like la dee la da da la da da, and then
Right?
just like yeah.
I just use that as an example.
Get
I
the
don't
fuck
know
out.
if their
I know.
straightener went missing. I'm just saying, like,
I know. Yeah.
right?
I
Yeah.
mean, in the real story, it was like because they were. I think in the real story, they were doing a lot of projects around this old duplex house or whatever, and
Right.
like the guy's hammers were disappearing. And it's like his stuff, like a hammer showing up in the drying machine or whatever. When I hear this story, I think of for some reason I go to duendes. Like I think like physical creatures that are able to physically move things, so like they're of this realm because like just one thing that confuses the hell out of me when it comes to ghosts is how are they non-corporeal, like they're non-physical but they can move objects as heavy as a hammer to another location in the house. And so like if I were to guess, I would be like this is kind of a case of like a mischievous physical entity, like not necessarily a ghost. But then you say things like, oh, they were seeing apparitions of a woman in a door and stuff like that. So like the one thing that blows my mind nowadays is like why don't we have more video evidence of things just floating through the air or popping out of existence, like people's ring cameras or whatever. Like I would love to see how a ghost moves a fucking hammer to a basement. That's that. I would love to see that. I want to see it.
It'd be kind of funny. You just see it like just floating,
Yeah,
do 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 do, and then it just goes, and they put it down in the basement. Like, like what are
dude.
you trying to accomplish?
If I was working on a project in my house, I'd be like, give me that fucking. I'd snatch it out of the air.
Like you dipshit. Like stop it. I'm trying to get this done.
Yeah,
if you thought that was all they experienced,
it's not over.
no, it is not.
Not
Because
over.
now it started to become personal. And I say that because it progressed from the sounds to the walls oozing green slime at the Krusty Krab.
It's the hash slinging
Slinging
slasher.
slasher. Yeah, that's who was there. It was the hash slinging slasher. He was too afraid to put in an application to be a tenant. But stupid joke. Sorry. But the reason I say this becomes personal, it's because it started to turn more violent. Yeah, we had the thing with it attacking the dog, but now it started targeting the people in the home as if, the knocking on the wall wasn't annoying enough, as your objects disappearing, the smell of rotting meat, the appearance of apparitions. The haunting escalates and turns violent. There were times where Janet was lifted into the air and slammed against the wall, and she claimed that she was also scratched by unseen claws. Jack claimed that during the night he would wake up to seeing a grotesque hag straddling him, pressing him down into the mattress. And Jack said that it wasn't a dream, it felt real. So that answers your question, buddy. Night hags are not sexy. For our
Do it.
OG listeners, like you would understand.
It's all a matter of perspective.
Right? Yeah, I guess so. Especially for you. But
Does she have all of her eyes and some of her teeth? Sold.
so oh man. But now their kids were the target as well. The girls would hear guttural voices growling their names from the darkness. Oh, that's fucking lovely. I hate that. I hate that more than anything. Just something randomly calling your name. They would hear guttural voices calling their names. Their crucifix
Chris.
would, yeah, I know. Shut up.
Chris.
Do you want to extend your car's warranty? Okay, done being stupid. So, along with that, they said that the crucifixes that were on their walls would end up twisting like all awkwardly, twisted upside down. Their religious statues that they had would be knocked over, some of them would be shattered. Janet claimed that one night she woke up and saw her husband's face twisted in terror, and he whispered that the hag had come again. By now, the Smurls no longer felt safe in their home, and they felt like they were being hunted inside of their own home. And not only that, the children also experienced their bed shaking, their blankets being yanked while they're laying in bed. Blasphemous phrases thudded through the walls in 3 knocks, and the activity, as we said before, bled through both sides of the duplex as well. So that continued.
Can I ask you real quick? What is the origin of? Sorry to sidetrack, but what is the origin of the cross being upside down as being a sign of Satanism or like being unholy? Like, is that something that is canon in Christianity, or is that something that was probably created as a visual effect from Hollywood in like The Exorcist or something? Is that a real thing, or is that just like a Hollywood thing?
Well, the upside down cross itself, that's how St. Peter was crucified.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Which is a sign that yeah, okay.
yeah, it
It's not necessarily demonic originally, it's just anti-Christian initially.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So it's also known as St. Peter's cross because that's how he was crucified by the Romans. But
Mhm.
eventually it started to be adopted as a symbol of Satanism and anti-Christian sentiments.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
it's more of a modern thing, and especially in horror movies and all this other stuff.
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
The reason I ask real quick is because, like, I just had kind of a mini thought about it's like, I just wondered if this whole upside down cross thing came about from a cross hanging on the wall. And, cross in my mind, depending on how it's designed, is top heavy because, more wood of the cross is beyond the middle point of the cross. It's the whole thing itself. So if the nail is improper and the weight shifts on the wall and something hits it, it might, through physics, slide upside down and hang the other way because the top side is heavier. So I was just imagining, like, a little mini earthquake or somebody like putting something down in the house too heavily and the cross just happened to flip upside down, and then somebody jumped to the conclusion, like, oh my god, like, a ghost turned it upside down, that's evil. But really it was just, it's top heavy. Like, it's like more of the wood is on top. It's gonna swing upside down naturally depending on how it's in the wall. But that's just, I don't know. Like,
No, that is a
that's
good
why I
question.
asked.
That is a good
Because
question.
it could be that the upside down cross doesn't mean shit in real, but you kind of confirmed it, like, oh no,
It's
one of the holy guys was, anyway.
yeah, yeah, it's Saint Peter's cross, but in the modern
Right.
connotation, it's been taken by different groups as like anti-Christian and involved with Satanism. But in all seriousness, historically, Saint Peter asked to be crucified upside down for as a sake of humility because he didn't think he was worthy to be crucified in
Ah,
the same manner as Jesus was.
interesting. Well,
Yeah,
hold on, like, wait a minute, that's interesting because if you imagine like, if there was a realm of Satanism or whatever, like, on the spiritual side, why would they want to adopt something that was kind of a sense of humility for Christianity? Because I didn't know that St. Peter chose or wanted that to happen because he didn't think that he was worthy.
right.
I just thought it was like a sign of disrespect. And that's interesting, right? Like, what do you think about that? Like, if like a demon was like, oh, I'm gonna turn this cross upside down, but in reality what the demon is doing is just reinforcing the idea that, oh, nobody can, like, Jesus is so special that nobody can mimic or be part of that upward
I
cross. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I think that due to modern hysteria with everything, with the way Hollywood likes to portray things and
Yes.
pop culture catching on, and you got to include
Mhm.
the satanic panic and all this other bullshit. When it comes to let's say like for demons, for example, they're not stupid. They were never human spirits. They were entities on their own, something much older and more evil or anything or something like that. Let's say if you and I were demons and we were trying to terrorize people and we know that an upside down cross for these religious folks is going to freak them the fuck out,
Yeah,
why
you're
not
gonna adopt it.
employ that tactic and
Right.
adopt that into your system of how you're going to terrorize them?
So
So
here's what we do. Here's what we do. We make it so actually worshiping the goodness of this world is the way to make things evil. And, like, you know what I mean? Like, let's
yeah,
make them think that doing the right thing is wrong, and they'll just want to be wrong, so they'll do the right thing. And then everybody will live in peace and harmony forever. That's how we do it. That
yeah.
that's how we
But for
get rid
the
of all the evil spirits.
Yeah, but to like go back to your initial question, it's the literally known as the St. Peter's cross. So an upside down cross. That's what it is. So
That's good to
yeah.
know. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. For people that didn't know that, if you don't believe me, fucking look it up. If you are a Christian and you know about St. Peter, you should know that, and you should know that he was crucified upside down. But anyways, I'll digress. Um s-
You should be Christian or you're an asshole. That's what I heard.
No, no. I'm just saying, like, if you don't know something or you have questions about something, it's not a bad thing to research it, to look up where
Yeah,
it came from.
fair enough.
But let's jump to the mid 1980s where the family goes to seek some help. And I'll toss that over to you because we enter in our favorite people. You absolutely love them, but let's go.
By the mid 1980s, the Smurl family, they were desperate, right? So they have all this shit going on. It's just, they can't handle it anymore. There's, like you said, there's physical apparitions, there's things moving around. They're actually getting accosted, growls in your ear. For me, like you said, that would be enough for me too. Like I'm done after that. So what do? They resolve to do some research on their own, and I'm guessing, it's difficult to do research in the 80s because we don't have computers yet. They actually have to do word of mouth or read books or just however they could find their information. They end up finding the Warrens, right? Ed and Lorraine. So, as pretty much everybody who is listening to this podcast knows, the entire series of The Conjuring based off of Ed and Lorraine Warren and their exploits into the paranormal for years. They were the quintessential go-to family for explaining things. They collected all kinds of supposed haunted knickknacks and artifacts, and that's how we get the Conjuring movies today. But so this family, the Smurl family, they reach out to the Warrens, and the Warrens were already at this point in the mid 80s. They were pretty seasoned, like they had been around for a while. And so Lorraine, being a clairvoyant, she claimed when she first connected with the Smurls that she sensed immediate darkness. There's something inhuman going on here. There's an inhuman entity in your home, implying that, you're not dealing with a person who passed away and their spirit, their ghost remaining. You're dealing with something that is trying to mimic a spirit of a human. In reality, it's something like you said, Chris. It's more ancient. It's more evil. It was never a human to begin with.
Yep.
That's the sense that Lorraine got.
To add on to that, Lorraine, on top of the something darker, she also claimed that when she did a walkthrough of the house, she sensed a woman, a girl, a shadow figure, and like you said, something inhuman that was controlling the rest of them.
I tend to look for like little nuances, and this nuance is the most powerful to me in this story, which was Ed actually tacked on to that his wife Lorraine's experience with what she was feeling. He simplified the term by saying, "This is not a lost soul. This is a parasite." That's an interesting way to look at a demon or an evil non-human entity that we've never looked at before. It's like it literally is a parasite. It's a parasite of the spiritual. If the like I'm not I don't want to like I know people who know me from this podcast, like I am not like I am a open-minded skeptic, but I do think that's fascinating. The idea that some metaphysical force, whatever it is, wherever it comes from, the parasite designation implies that it needs something from this reality. And it's an important concept that this is why these things keep bothering people. This is why they keep coming back, and they have to be purged from the head or whatever, like a tick. You can't just like rip it out. You have to grab the head or burn it off or whatever. So there's a set of particular ways to expel such a thing. And so I think that's interesting that Ed kind of framed it that kind of ticks up my respectability for the Warrens slightly, even though we kind of think that for the most part they were blowing one over for a lot of people. But aside from that, the Warrens arranged an exorcism, and they also set up these blessings, ritualistic, occasional, that would happen in short bursts. And soon enough, the torment kind of like subsided. Things seemed like it was going well, but then apparently something is on fire. Apparently something is on fire in my home, and I need to go figure out what it is. I'll be right back.
That scared the fuck out of me, bro.
It's probably my mom trying to cook something. Hold on.
Go
Wait,
ahead.
hold on. It's
It
stopping.
stopped. We're keeping this in.
Okay. This happens from time to time. Mother, she lives with us, and she likes to cook meat in a closed windows environment and just huff it in. That's what she does. No,
Yeah.
I love you, Mom.
Yep.
Okay.
I'd like to add on to the exorcism part, which I found really interesting. So this took place between 1986 to 1987. So like you said, the Warrens urged the church to perform an exorcism. So they had priests come in conducting the rites. And what's really interesting and creepy is that every time they performed this, the house would seem to fight back. The walls would shake and start pounding. The smell of sulfur filled the air, and the family started being attacked more viciously. It was said that the demon mocked them, growling obscenities, pounding in threes to mimic and mock the Trinity. Neighbors started to talk about this. What else happened? Journalists came knocking, and the Smurls' home was becoming a sideshow. But for the family, their torment was real. I just wanted to throw that in about the exorcism and how it turned into this whole circus. I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
Oh, you did not. It's totally fine, man. To add on to what you were saying, I just think that to wrap it all up, this time period, I would assume for a lot of people, especially the neighbors who weren't dealing with what was going on, the Smurls directly, like it was probably just terrifying, right? Like they're just like, "Ugh, I hope this freaking whatever it is, demon doesn't bleed over into our house." See, that's what I think is the most concerning about these situations is if even if you have somebody who is blowing this out of proportion, they're trying to elevate the story for their own benefit, whether you like the Warrens or not, that's kind of what I'm getting after. And the Smurls, if they were actually going through this, if they're extrapolating it to a level that was not sustainable anymore, maybe they experienced something, but then they kind of just milked it a little bit. Who knows? We'll get into that later. But you still have people being bothered by this on a grander scale who are not part of this immediate sphere of whatever's going on. So you're kind of feeding into the negative energy loop in society, and that's just a bad thing all around. Like even if you're not affecting the metaphysical nature of reality around these people, like which is possible, like you could be creating a nexus for negative things to come in and affect other people. Even if that's not happening, you're still negatively affecting their physical, psychological makeup. This is the part of the story where, for me, it comes to a crossroads. It's like, okay, they might have been going through some stuff, but they're also kind of milking it with the Warrens. But other people are still suffering out of the fear for all this stuff. That's where my brain goes next when you start leading into the media frenzy that you alluded to.
Yeah. And now between 1988 and 1991, where it goes public basically. Because in 1988, journalist Robert Curran worked with the Smurls and the Warrens to publish a book that detailed the entire ordeal, titled The Haunted One Family's Nightmare. So that book was published in December of 1988. And I think I actually read the audiobook. I might actually have that in my library because yes, I do
You
actually.
read
I do.
you read the audiobook? You read that audiobook.
I listened to it. All right. Shut the fuck up. Leave me alone, asshole.
Come on, Mr. Double Masters. You're
Whatever.
listening to books now?
I didn't. Yes, I listen to books now. Now we go on to 1991, where their story ends up being dramatized in a TV movie called The Haunted, in which millions of people saw the Smurls struggle brought to life on their home TV screens. To many, it cemented the case as one of the most terrifying hauntings in American history. But as expected, not everyone that read the book, read about the case, or watched the film was convinced. Skeptics argued that stress, imagination, and sleep paralysis could explain much of it, and others suspected that it was embellishment for media attention. And as we know in the past, later in the Warrens' career, they like to go public with some of these cases. But even after all of those accusations, the Smurls never wavered in their claims. They insisted that this all happened exactly as they described it. So by the time we get to 1989, the Smurls are exhausted and they're desperate for peace in their lives. So they end up moving out of the duplex. So by the time we get to 1989, the Smurls are completely exhausted and they are desperate for peace in their lives. They end up moving out of the duplex. There are a couple of accounts that say the haunting followed the family briefly before it ended up quieting and stopping. And others claim that a final forceful exorcism performed after they left drove the entity out for good. They moved out, they sold a house. Later families that lived in the Chase Street duplex said that they experienced nothing unusual, but for Jack and Janet, they say that the scars lingered. They lived the rest of their lives maintaining the same story, that they had been tormented for over a decade by a force they could never understand, a force that seemed determined to destroy them. The Smurl family haunting remains one of the most famous cases in modern American paranormal history. Believers tend to hold this case up as a textbook example of demonic infestation. Skeptics like to point to psychology, stress, and media sensationalism. But for those who tell the story and for those who lived it, the duplex on Chase Street was no ordinary home. It was a spiritual battlefield. Thanks for tuning into today's episode of The Wandering Road. You can find us on Apple, Google, Spotify, and most podcast platforms. Be sure to subscribe and share. Also, don't forget to give a follow on Instagram at TW Road Podcast and follow my TikTok at TWR Podcast. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next one.